Hello and welcome to Cognitions, Speaking the Unspeakable with JP.
And Stacy D.
We are broadcasting remotely from KUAW Radio, dodging COVID.
Oh,
You
yes.
can, oh yes, you can catch the show at KUAW.org, Facebook Live, YouTube, TuneIn, on your Alexa smart speakers. If you have any comments for the show, you can put those in the chat on Facebook Live. The phone number to call into the show is 816-599-6893. So, Stacy D, what's going on?
Hey, not much. Just once again, I want to apologize for the stuffiness. The allergies have gotten to me again. Was been following a news story about our ex-Kansas City Chief, Brett Reed. Right before they went to the Super Bowl, he had a terrible accident on 430. Was it 4? Yeah, it was on I-70. And he hit
by the stadium.
He had just left Arrowhead Stadium, actually. That's what the news reporter said. And he had an accident. Well, people don't like saying accident because it really wasn't an accident. Well, anyway, he had a car collision and it really did a lot of harm to someone, in particular, a 5-year-old little girl. And since then, he has resigned from the Kansas City Chiefs. And later to find out, there was alcohol involved.
Okay. That's an accident. I don't understand people struggling with calling it an accident. It was tragic. I had heard that the little girl was in a coma. How is she doing? She's out of the coma.
Oh, no, she's not on life support and her eyes have opened. But she is on life support because she's not breathing on her own, but she has woke up. So I guess she is out the coma now. She's not in the coma. She has woke up, but she's still on life support.
Okay.
But this is drinking and driving.
Okay. This is horribly unfortunate. After the Chiefs had lost the Super Bowl, some people suspected that maybe this accident had an impact upon them that day because it took place right before then.
Right before.
They did not say that it played a role in their performance in the Super Bowl. Regardless, this is an extremely tragic incident. I'm glad to hear that she's better. And I hope that she continues to get better.
Definitely her prayers to her family, most definitely.
Yes, we should all keep her and her family in our prayers. And, also him, when things like this happen, I always feel bad for the person who, has been deemed to be at fault in these incidents because
really, Gerald, I wouldn't take that from you. You can see it from me, but these shouldn't have been driving, and I could see you saying that. He shouldn't have been drinking and driving. And
no, I feel that way also. But
I know it.
I feel that way also. I mean, Stacy D, you know me, but I do struggle with sometimes we have to remind ourselves that although that's true, he should not have been drinking and driving and a child was injured. We also have to remember that people are human and it was a mistake and people make mistakes. It's not like it was intentional. And the problem is a person can live their whole life. They can live 30, 40 years on the planet and have one incident like that happen. And it is such a defining moment that it ends up people define them by that moment. And that's what they are remembered for. It's like it becomes the legacy of their lives. And so even though, yes, we have to say, okay, it's not, a person.
But even though with Brett Reed, he's been having a problem with drinking and driving. This was not the first instance. I did find
really?
that. Yeah, he has had some other problems with other addictions. So, but it was just something real funny to me that. So we got this young man that have all these problems with addictions and has been in news before behind his addictions, and he was an assistant coach. Oh, you know why? Because his father was the head coach. And you know what? By me being a mother, if I hit a lick, I'm going to try to bring all my family and friends on too. Jerome, have you right on there with me? Even though
okay, put me on the team.
No, listen, people. Even though you don't invite me to your little girl's birthday party, I was in my feelings about that.
I'm going to get to that in a minute. Stacy D, this is your check-in. We ain't got to me yet. We ain't got to me yet.
I was doing both check-ins.
No, Stacy D.
I've been invited to the baby shower. Number one.
Oh my God.
Number two.
Stacy D.
See? Yo, co-host. Hold on, party people. 4 weeks ago.
Oh my God. Do not hold on, party people. Listen, I'm going to get to that in just a minute. Everything I just said about a person's life not being defined by one major mistake, apparently throw all that out. Because I didn't know there was a history of this. Everything I said doesn't even apply. Forget what I said.
I feel sorry for him because he has a problem and he needs assistance with his problem. Hopefully,
but he's not who I was talking about. When I'm talking about people who have a single life-altering incident and they are condemned for it for the rest of their lives, is as if they did not live a good, purposeful life prior to that and even after that, and they're judged for the rest of their life on an isolated incident. But I shouldn't have said, see, you should have gave more information before I went into that, Stacy D.
Well, you know how you like to talk.
Okay, let's get to, I have a Facebook/pandemic problem. Okay, this is what happened, because I'm about to issue my public apology. This is what happened. Okay, so Sashi Boo, my baby Sasha, her birthday was coming up.
Sasha.
We decided at the last minute, like 2 days before this party, you know what, we should have a party anyway, even though it's the pandemic. Now she don't know what her birthday is. She don't know what a party is. But I thought about it, I was like, she know when she having fun, and she knows when she's the center of attention.
And she likes being the center of attention. That's why she's my niece.
She like being the center of attention. She don't play by being the center of attention. Okay, she probably got that from Stacy D. Okay,
and she got from her auntie Stacy.
She got that from Auntie Stacy D. And so we decided to have, I was like, I'm gonna keep it under 10 people. So we went ahead and invited people. I invited, my sister, my brother-in-law, one nephew out of all of my nephews and nieces and his family. Okay, so this is what happened. This is the trouble that I got into. Okay, first, let me say, I can understand why I'm in trouble, because it took us, her birthday celebrations are really more so a celebration for the grown-ups.
For the adults, exactly.
It took us 6 years to get her here. I'm talking IUI, around the IVF, performed in Europe.
$1 million baby.
A horrible miscarriage at a park during a family reunion.
That's tragic. That was tragic.
Another trip to Europe for another round of IVF. Like between the 2 rounds of IVF, the miscarriage, grown folks are like, we celebrating that Sashi's here, okay? Because we didn't plan to be old and having Sashi. We was old by the time she got here. We was young when we started. Okay, neither here nor there. The next day after this party, because of Facebook, because of course,
Facebook could get you messed up.
Everybody post on Facebook. It looked like it was 50 people up in my house, okay? It wasn't 50 people in the house. It was about 10 or 11 very loud people, which made it sound like it was 50 people.
Yeah, because Kelly was in there and her voice. Woo!
It was loud.
Kelly.
Well, and my nephew is loud, and my sister, I can hear my sister right now, and she's all the way in Missouri. I'm in Kansas. I hear her right now. Okay, that's how loud my people are. Okay, and so this is the text I got the next morning, and you gonna know who it's from.
Okay, let me hear.
I'm trying to figure out how in the hell I was not invited to my niece's birthday party. And then it's like 4 angry emojis. The ones with the red face.
I know who that was from.
Our girl Terry is.
Hey, T, baby.
She's so mad. She's not playing. I was like, ooh.
I was gonna call Terry too to see if she get invited, but I won't put no fuel on the fire. No fuel on the fire.
She showed up with a full bonfire and brought her own fuel. So I explained. I said, listen, Terry, this was a last minute, like 2 days notice. She requires a month's notice on a phone. I got to schedule a phone conversation with her a month in advance. She don't make to half of my birthday celebrations because she requires so much notice. So I was like, how you wasn't going to be able to come.
Sasha's two different. You and Sasha's two different things.
And guess what? That's exactly what she said.
Exactly.
She basically made it clear that missing my birthday celebration and missing Sasha's is 2 totally different things. So this is what I end up getting. Because I apologize. Let me tell you, I did apologize. I said, you know what? I'm sorry. I should have invited you anyway. Like, I don't even know what my problem is. It was the principle of it. Like, I'm very sorry.
Exactly, the principle.
And so she says, it is the principle, and I more than likely would have come. It's my niece. I would have tried to be there. Please don't leave me out of any of Sashi Boo's life's moments. This is the part that almost made me get a little tearful. I really feel bad. I was being supportive and waiting on her to get here right along with you over that 6-year period. Okay, so I'm giving a public apology to Terry Mason.
I hope Inga's watching.
And to Stacy D and everybody else. And then I'm gonna cut because of this, I have figured out how to handle these situations during a pandemic. Okay. But here's what she's so upset she didn't even respond to this apology. That's why I'm making it publicly right now. And so I said, yes, I know, and you're absolutely right. I didn't have no business figuring that it was too late of notice for your schedule. No dang gum business. Just because you need a month's notice on my birthday celebrations don't mean that you need a month's notice on Sashi Boo's. This is Sashi. And you're a great auntie and a blessing to my baby. If you don't know, you better ask somebody. Okay? You good to my baby. Hell, I was tripping. I'm mad enough to punch myself in the face. Now, this ain't gonna happen again. You better bet that it won't. Plus, we won't be having, in the pandemic next year anyway, so we'll be back to planned actual birthday celebrations at locations and all of that. But I'm just saying, it ain't gonna happen. So you might as well stop being mad at me right damn now. When do I screw stuff up anyway? Hardly ever. I'm almost perfect. This is the apology I said. I'm almost perfect. Stacy D, this is a public apology, Stacy D. This is a public apology. I'm almost perfect when it comes to not screwing stuff up. Now, I probably was perfect until now, and this is really the pandemic's fault, kind of, sort of, in a way. Well, almost, when you really think about it. I'm just saying, I'm sorry. And so, I'm the one to blame. Nadine is not to blame. And Nadine, because I just texted her and said, look, I invited these people. So she was kind of upset. She's like, well, I didn't get to choose who was on that list either. This is all me. I apologize to Terry, to you, Stacy D, to all the family members.
You know No, she was very emotional. Oh my God. She
Who?
was very emotional. Guy. And I was like, girl, we gonna charge it to his head and not his heart. And I'm gonna speak on it. And I said, I'm gonna speak on it on the show.
I knew you would. I'm beating you to it, and I'm making a public apology. Now, as a result of this, I have figured out how this needs to be done when it comes to pandemic celebrations. For pandemic celebrations, I want our listeners to pay attention to this. Please do not be getting cussed out by everybody in your city like I have been all week. Okay, this is what you do. You figure out who the must invites are. Probably 1 or 2 people, grandma, grandpa, okay? Your other 8 people, you go ahead and invite all your people, all 50 invites. But what you do is you say, because that levels the playing field. So then what you do is you say, listen, this is first come, first serve. Once we get to our number of 10, we cutting it off.
Oh, no.
And then that way, nobody can be pissed at you. They just gonna be mad at themselves. Like, what you mean it's cut off? I just got this text 2 hours ago. We filled up in 10 minutes. That's how I should have handled it. The only other option is to invite everybody and just say, listen, this is a super spreader event. Enter at your own risk and let everybody come. Well, I'm scared to do that. I'm scared of COVID. Okay. I'm too old for COVID. So that's what I want our listeners to do.
We're not scared of COVID. We will not let the devil have that. No, we're not.
Whatever you call it, I don't want to be bothered with COVID. And I wasn't going to have 50 people up in here celebrating a 2-year-old's birthday. Okay. But that's what, from this point on, that's how and I suggest everybody else do the same. Invite all your people and say, RSVP, first come, first serve. That's it. We done. But I screwed this up. Like,
yeah, you did.
I screwed this up, and I apologize to all of y'all. Okay, are we good? I'm forgiven.
You forgiven.
Tell me I'm forgiven right now, Stacy D.
We spoke about forgiveness a couple of weeks ago. You're forgiven.
I got to be. All right. Okay, what's going on in the news?
I'm JP.
I'm trying to pull it together. Okay. Stacy D, do you have another news story, or was that your news story about?
That was my news story. What do you have for entertainment news?
Okay. I actually skipped entertainment news. I want an update on the Ahmaud Arbery case. Okay. Remember, Ahmaud Arbery is the young Black gentleman that was jogging and was killed by 3 white men who took it upon themselves because they assumed that he had committed some crime. Now he's out jogging, okay?
Like we don't
when people commit a crime, they're not jogging, they're running. They're running at breakneck speed.
Exactly.
They're not jogging. Okay.
They don't have jogging clothes on.
Exactly. Well, his mother has filed a federal lawsuit alleging a cover-up by the police, a conspiracy to violate his civil rights, by deputizing private citizens to complete police actions. And then the police department has attempted to cover it up to be sure that those private citizens escape justice. And so her attorney was saying this is a Fourth Amendment violation of due process. Here's the thing that is really, really gut-wrenching and sad about this. His mother said that he is still the last thing that she thinks about at night when she goes to bed, and he's still the first thing that she thinks about when she wakes up in the morning. And you know she's thinking about her baby all during the day. So she is pursuing this case because she does not want any other parent to end up in that position, and you really cannot blame her for that. So it's just sad and it's tragic. And like, when have they ever deputized Black people to take justice into their hands? Never. I'm going to tell you when it happened. 2 days after, never. That's when that'll ever happen. So these 3 derelicts and degenerates that they deputized.
For the connection.
Say that again, Stacy D.
We're not the right complexion for the connection.
Apparently. And so I want that police department. I hope they win this case because they do deserve to be held accountable.
I'm pretty sure they might win.
They deserve to be held accountable for deputizing 3 fools who were basically racist. All right. So, Stacy D, let me see. I'm trying to think because I we'll have time for it. No. I did have something in entertainment news, but we're just going to skip it. Let's get to the question of the day. Our question of the day today is, parenting teenagers, what am I going to do with this kid? A look at the teenage brain. Okay, on our Facebook page, I uploaded some images to go along with the question of the day. So any listeners out there, when I get to the part where I'm going to talk about the adolescent brain, there are images to kind of show exactly what it is that I'm talking about.
The diagram of it.
Yes. Okay. So, but let's take a look at parenting teenagers. Let's first discuss the key to getting any adolescent to listen to any adult. Kids do not listen to adults who they do not respect. Respect is key to parenting an adolescent. That's just a part of their stage of development. They're striving for individuation and independence. They're wanting to establish their own identity and are more than okay with being separate and different from who you are as a parent. So, how do you earn a teenager's respect? Since that's essential to keeping the parenting door open, here's some things to look at. 1, respect them as a person. Teens want to be respected in how you interact with them, because a part of their stage of development is, for those, sometimes I have parents who want to cuss the kids out and they want to call the kids names, and then they wonder why the kids do not have respect for them. Well, because you're not respecting me as a human being. So that's one thing to think about. Another thing to think about is, and I know this is going to sound funny, but you have to be smarter than them. There is no room for stupidity or ignorance when you are parenting someone who is developing their own ideas and willing to challenge any of your ideas that do not make sense to them. So you have to be smarter than them. This is achieved by always being willing to present life lessons and information that you can back up. Anytime you redirect an adolescent, present it as a life lesson and be able to support what you're saying with evidence, because they are waiting for you to slip and not be able to back up what you say. Okay, so that's what I mean when I say you got to be smarter than them. And one useful technique is using metaphors and analogies to drive your lessons home. But the goal is to always stay 2 steps ahead of them. Now, here's another tip for parenting adolescents. When you are wrong, you have to be willing to admit it and accept responsibility for your mistakes, just as you expect them to do. And by all means, if you owe them an apology, you'll earn tons of respect from them, tons of respect points by being mature enough to give them that apology. This is something that is difficult for parents. Parents don't necessarily like apologizing to their kids, but remember, if the key to parent a teenager, say that again, Stacy D.
I said, most definitely, you have to do that whenever you're in the wrong. I mean,
absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And this is key to them respecting you as a person, that you're willing to admit that you are wrong. Okay. So here's another. Establish yourself as being on the side of what's right versus being on any individual side. For example, if their teacher has wronged them, stand up for them. Don't agree with the teacher just because the teacher is an adult. Doing this makes it so much easier when it's time for you to confront them on their mess. They'll be much less likely to dispute what you're saying because they know that you have established yourself as a person who stands for what is right, regardless of who is involved. This is so important when you are parenting teenagers. Now,
Gerald, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that one. Well, some of it, because I really feel as though that you have to get that level of trust with your children too. And this is only my parenting style. It may not be the right parenting style, but this is Stacy D's parenting style. I always taught my children, I don't care if you right or wrong, I'm on your side, but when we get in them four walls, that's when we're going to have that conversation. Because, and I feel that children always have to feel as though that they can always come to their parent. And no, I'm not going to put that out there in front of everybody, but when we get in our four walls, we're going to have a sit down and we're going to have a talk. My son, real quick, we got minutes, he started a food fight at the school.
Well, that's just fun.
Yeah, but it was crazy. And then he got
That's just fun, Stacy D.
But not at school. That was wrong. So
that's the best place to have a food fight. I'm not encouraging kids to have food fights. Let me say that real quick. Let me just I'm just saying though, where else he gonna have a food fight? In your house?
Heck to the now.
Right.
So I'm so upset because that was good for Mama, you need to come up here. I'm on my way. I get to the school, they got cameras in the cafeteria. So then I had to retract what I said. I was like, well, I don't care. I was the ignorant mama that day. And me and my son walked on up out of there. And then when we got home, I said, I would have been on your side, but you should have told me all the story. So right. Guess what he does now? He tells me all the story so we can come up in there with guns blazing. And I was able to get his trust. I'd rather have your trust than almost, you understand what I'm saying? Because the trust was.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. Right. I hear what you're saying. For me, in those school situations, I have to have a relationship with the school where they see me as a valid, legitimate parent. Keep in mind, I see teachers, principals, and higher up administrators in therapy also in the school district that my kids go to. I can't defend them when they're wrong in the school and have a reputation with the school of always blanketly defending them. I let my kids know, tell me the truth before we get in this school. Okay, I'm going to defend you on any points that you are right on, but if you're wrong, I'm going to say that you're wrong and you will be apologizing to these people up in this meeting. So I see what you're saying.
We got two different views on that.
Yeah, it's just, okay, here's the next thing. And you let me know if you agree or disagree with this, Stacy D. Do not be a hypocrite. This kind of leads into what we was just talking about. There's no room for hypocrisy in parenting adolescents. They will immediately dismiss whatever you are saying if they can pinpoint instances where you didn't live by your own principles. And believe me, they're looking for any hypocrisy because that's the easiest way to dismiss whatever you are saying. This is going to come back up when we get to the modern parenting segment. But you can't be a hypocrite if you're parenting teenagers. They will call you on that. The next thing, this is very important. You can't be weak. You cannot be a weak parent parenting teenagers. You need to be structured, clear, and consistent in your rules and your expectations. Teenagers, they like weakness, but they don't respect it. And it's more important to be respected by them than to be liked by them. Striving to be liked will oftentimes compromise doing what is the right thing to do, because parenting is going to put you in some positions where you have to be willing to not be liked. Here's something to think about. Most teens will also like a parent who is strong enough to be a parent if you do a good job at explaining what you're doing and that you're doing it because you love them and you want them to grow up to be responsible, productive adults. There's no room for weakness. Teenagers run over weak parents. And a lot of the kids that I see in therapy, the root of the problem is the parent is inconsistent and lenient. The kid sees them as being weak. You can't be weak with a teenager. They don't respect their peers who are weak. They don't respect teachers who are weak, and they don't respect parents who are weak.
That's true.
This next one you should like, Stacy D, because you've talked about this before. Make family quality time a rule, not a choice, and use that time to reconnect with your child. Talk to them daily about the things that's going on in their world. Have real conversations with them. Do not accept one-word answers. When you ask them how their day went at school, they need to tell you how their day went. They cannot say fine. No, what does fine mean? Tell me what fine. What was fine about first hour, second hour, third hour? How did lunch go? Parents have to have this quality time with their kids, eat dinner together, whatever the case may be, and have real conversations. Now, here is something to think about. Actually, we probably need to go to a commercial break because I have one last piece where I'm going to explain the adolescent brain. And that's where the images are on the Facebook page. So, Stacy D, do you think we should move forward with it now, or I'm just go ahead and move forward with it now? Okay, the human brain is not fully developed until the age of 25. Okay, the frontal lobe or prefrontal cortex is the last thing to develop in the human brain. So let's take a look at what the frontal lobe controls. And that's the images that's on the Facebook page. In our frontal lobe, there is reasoning, motor skills and body movement, high-level cognitive functioning, expressive language. The frontal lobe suppresses socially inappropriate behaviors, predicts consequences of actions. All that consequence analysis takes place in the frontal lobe, the part of the brain that isn't fully developed until the age of 25. Okay, this should help a lot of the things that you're experiencing with your teenagers to make some sense as I'm going down this list. All right. The frontal lobe plays a role in the choice between good and bad actions, making those decisions. The ability to concentrate and focus is frontal lobe, prefrontal cortex. Judgment, problem solving, planning, personality traits and personality development, the regulation of emotions, intelligence, speech, and writing. All of that is prefrontal cortex. When you are parenting your teenager, you have to remember that they are functioning with an underdeveloped brain.
Yes.
And all of these things, when you think about all these things, these are where a lot of the problems in parenting teenagers come in, and this part of the brain isn't fully developed until the age of 25. When they take a look at injured prefrontal cortexes, injured frontal lobes, this is what they find: loss of movement and paralysis, repetition of a single thought, unable to focus on a single task, mood swings, irritability, impulsivity, changes in social behavior and personality, difficulty with problem solving, difficulty with language, struggling to get their words out. Okay, here's something to think about. 7 out of 9 of those symptoms that I just presented as descriptors of an injured frontal lobe, that's teenagers. So when you think about it, an injured frontal lobe is very similar to one that has just not fully developed. An underdeveloped frontal lobe is like taking a turkey out on Thanksgiving and that thing is half cooked and you putting it on the table, it's going to be a mess for all of your guests. So those parents out there who like to poke your teenager in the forehead when you fussing at him, poke, you might want to start poking on the side because you poking the frontal lobe. Poke your heathen on the side.
On the side.
You better poke your heathen on the side because his frontal lobe is already underdeveloped. You got to be gentle with it. Now, here's the thing. I'm pointing all this out not to say that you are supposed to let your kids slide on being impulsive and emotionally dysregulated and their struggles to choose between right and wrong and good and bad. This does not mean you do not address those things, because a part of helping that frontal lobe develop is you address and teach them these things. Because if you don't, they'll turn 25 and their frontal lobe will be fully developed, but it will not contain the life lessons that they need to have. So I want to make that really clear. I am not saying excuse these struggles that teenagers have just because their brain is not fully developed. Help their brain fully develop. That's what has to happen. What are your thoughts, Stacy D?
I totally agree with you.
Yeah,
what I said earlier, we are our children's first teachers. And if we don't give them the best life lessons, it's not good. You are not doing your due diligence as being a parent.
Yes.
But I'm gonna try that with my granddaughter on the side. Because I'll be popping in the mouth.
Her skull is hard enough. You can still poke her forehead. Her skull is hard enough. But this is just for parents to, I'm presenting this information for parents to be able to be more tolerant, not accepting of these difficult behaviors, but just understanding, okay, my kid is functioning with a partially developed frontal lobe. So that's why he's standing here screaming at me right now and is making all the wrong choices and is impulsive, but you still have to check him. You still have to plant information.
Maybe as a parent, maybe sometimes you need to time out. Because if he's in front of me hollering,
yes,
I am going to take a time out.
Yeah, frontal lobe or not, you're going to have to take a break.
I'm going to take a time out before it be some problem to the frontal lobe.
So he don't end up with an injured frontal lobe.
But I'm going to tell you something. A lot of times on son and mother relationships, it's not too much as the sons doing all that hollering back at their mother. And I raised two young men.
Right.
Some doggone gals. How long did it take for their frontal lobe to do the development? Because I think I messed up some frontal developments.
Well,
wait a minute. I was in school at the time too. I think I must have slipped out on that one in my master's program, because guess what? I messed up I messed up the frontal.
Well, girls actually mature faster than males. A lot of these frontal lobe issues, as I read down the list, I kind of see them being a little worse in males than in females. The emotional dysregulation, which is what you're talking about, the yelling and all of that I think is more prevalent in females. Like when my sons were, because Jose's 18, Ian is 20, when they were still at home, we didn't have a whole lot of problems with emotional dysregulation, but their frontal lobes were truly tripping, because when it came to making bad decisions and being impulsive and, just, we had to pray a lot and remind ourselves.
Those problems with my daughters than I did with my sons.
Really? Maybe it was that female to female dynamic.
I think it was. It was more that female dynamic, more than the male to female. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
My boys had their own car and driving at 14, and they were making great decisions because they didn't have a choice but to, because I was in grad school, and they were making great decisions, and I was at school and didn't have any worries about them being out here 14 years old with a £10,000
vehicle. Yeah. So you didn't really experience a lot of those frontal lobe deficits with your boys.
None at all. None.
Wow. Okay.
They were big thinkers, and they still are big thinkers. They're thinks I can tell them something and say, hey, I need you to get back with me on how we're going to make this happen. They were just real big thinkers. Yeah. Okay. But my daughter, especially my oldest daughter, she was just, I said, she's so much like my mother. She just like, I'm going to do it right now. Whatever happens, happens. And
yes.
And guess what?
That's all frontal lobe. That's all frontal lobe. That's all frontal
lobe, exactly. And guess what? She's about to be 32 and she still feels like that. Like,
oh, she's running late. She's running late.
Wait a minute. Here go the thing about it. She went to nursing school. At the end of nursing school, guess what? I don't want to do that.
Really? Why is her frontal lobe tripping?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Was you tapping it too much, Stacy D? Tap on the side, parent.
No, I'm at the call. Guess what? I'm at the call and apologize to her again today. Danny, I'm sorry.
Listen, tell her. Tell her she's way past 25. It's time to pull it together. Okay. And she made it to the end of nursing school, so she knows that her frontal lobe is fully developed. Why is she still tripping? That's the question to ask her.
But she was in her early 20s. She was like maybe 20, 21 at that time. So maybe it wasn't.
Okay. See, she'll probably go back to nursing school now.
Yeah. No, I ain't no telling. She don't want to do none of that.
Wow.
Personal care, no.
Well, let me tell you, one of my sons, I'm not gonna say names. Every time he calls, it's a ridiculous decision. Okay, I'm talking ridiculous decisions to the point where I'm like ready to rip out his frontal lobe and smack that thing and shove it back in his head.
Back in there, hoping you fixed it.
Horrible decisions. Like, we just have to keep Cash App just ready at all times because money has to be sent because he makes ridiculous decisions. I'm going to celebrate when he turned 25 more than he will because I'm like, I need for your frontal lobe to be fully developed. I think what happens is all of those life lessons that we plant, those seeds that we plant, they're there. And so it's around 24, 25 when the brain is fully developed, because this is the only part of the brain that is still developing until 25, that they get to the point where they're like, oh, now I see what my mom was talking about. Now I see what my dad was talking about. Now it makes sense. Oh, everybody isn't my friend. Oh, I shouldn't let 8 people move into my apartment that's a 1-bedroom and I only have like me on the lease. Oh, I shouldn't let a girl that I just met know that I got all my rent money in the underwear drawer and bring her over to the house. You see what I'm saying, Stacy D? I'm waiting on 25. Okay, let's get to our modern parenting segment.
Are we ever going to have a commercial break?
I do not think so. We're just going to roll straight through.
We're just going to roll with it. Okay. Our modern parent question today is?
Okay. Our modern parenting question: how do I address marijuana use by my child when he knows that his father uses it also? What I want to look at is, how do you address marijuana use when either parent or both parents are smoking it? So I have some thoughts on this, Stacy. What are your thoughts?
I actually went and asked a couple people how they felt about the whole marijuana thing. And I'm sorry, I can't help because I don't drink, do marijuana. One thing I do is pop a sleeping pill at night. I mean, I'm just really natural. But it was the old saying, do as I say and not what I do. I got that from everybody. And then I actually went to a couple of men and I even asked King, and King was like, this is my house, these are the rules of my house. But King don't get high or nothing. But these are the rules of my house, and it's disrespecting the house. He looked at it as him disrespecting the house. And I really feel, and then, just talking to King, I was like, well, I think everybody's disrespecting the house. If you feel as though there shouldn't be any drugs in the house, everybody should smoke in the car or smoke outside. I mean, and then it's the same difference. Like, you're not supposed to do marijuana, just like smoking cigarettes. You're not supposed to smoke cigarettes till you're 18. You're not supposed to drink until you're 21. I mean, it's just a whole gamma of things. And then not to mention what the cannabis do to your frontal lobe. It's just a whole gamma of things. And then while I was reading an article, and it was like the teenagers was like, so how much can I smoke before it damages it?
Because that's teenagers. That's the adolescent stage of development. Yes. Constantly challenging whatever you present.
Want to know. Then why?
Well, here's what my thoughts were. Because remember what I said, teenagers do not do well with hypocrisy. You cannot be a hypocrite. When you say to them, well, this is my house and do what I say do and not what I do, they're going to stand there and not say anything, but they're going to go out and get high because they do not respect hypocrisy. And so my initial thoughts were, well, present to them the difference between your brain and the effects of marijuana on your brain and the effects of marijuana on their brain. But when I looked deeper into it, the studies are actually inconclusive. For every study that talks about the damage to the frontal lobe and damage to, parts of the brain that, where memory is stored and all of that, there's another study that says that it's, that it's inconclusive. And the reason why the studies are so inconclusive, and one study says it causes damage and another says it doesn't, is because it's hard to study teenagers and it's hard to do so in an ethical manner. The problem they have had with trying to do marijuana studies on the adolescent brain is, one, you can't have a control subjects. You can't give marijuana to teenagers to see how it's going to affect their brain. So there's right, there's ethical limitations. And so they're left trying to study teenagers who are just already regular weed smokers. What a problem with that is, they end up skewing the results because they're also drinking alcohol and doing other things. Right. So you still do not have enough control over the whole study, the situation, the data, everything is skewed because they're teenagers. And we're talking about marijuana. And so trying to present, if you have a smart teenager and you present to them, well, listen, my brain's fully developed. It's not doing the damage to my brain that it's doing to yours. If you have a really smart kid, they're going to go out and do research and be like, well, I found a study that says it doesn't do anything. And then you pulling up yours that says it does. And they pulling up another one and y'all just going back and forth. And so what they have done is they have done studies on mice and rats. in the studies on in the studies, Mr. Walker's laughing because they can't study the teenagers thoroughly. Okay, there's some more studies coming down the pike, some 10-year-long studies that are not helping us today as we're trying to cover this subject. And the parents with teenagers who are listening to this, their kids will be grown, so that's not helping us right now. But in studies with rats and mice, what they have found is that because this is, I mean, that's ethical studies. What they have found is that marijuana on the adolescent brains in these animals did lead to struggles with memory, interpreting like how to get through mazes, intelligence. They did find, because that's a controlled study, like they are able to make sure that these rats are not also drinking like a fifth of whiskey while smoking. Okay. And in the control group, they're able to make sure that they're totally sober. And so, yes, they did find that it slows the maturing rate of the brain in these animals, you know, that motivation was negatively affected, reward and consequence processing, which is all frontal lobe, was negatively impacted. So they have found some things that make sense, but we're talking about teenagers. When you start talking to teenagers about rat and mice studies, they like,
I'm not a rat or a mice. How old?
I'm not a rat, I'm not a mouse. That's their brain. My brain is bigger than theirs. I can handle smoking a couple of fat ones. And so really, here's the thing. If you really want your adolescent to stop smoking marijuana, you got to want it bad enough for you to stop. That's really how I truly feel in my gut, especially considering that teenagers don't do well with hypocrisy. You standing there smelling like you just smoked 3 joints and telling them they better quit getting high is not going to work.
Joints no more.
Blunts, joints. Well, actually now they are using they're vaping. They're vaping now. And it's stronger, it's a more intense high. That's really what the teenagers are doing now. But the bottom line is, when you're dealing with a teenager, you can't be a hypocrite. When you tell them that you don't want them to get high, you need to be willing to say, you know what, I'll stop too. Anything else, you need to be prepared that they're going to continue to do what they're going to do. And there's a chance that they're going to still continue to do what they want to do, even if you are offering to stop also. We're talking about teenagers. But this falls in alignment with everything else I presented earlier on parenting teenagers. If you want to be respected by them, you cannot come at them high telling them don't get high. Okay. Stacy D, any final thoughts on this?
No. It was just a lot.
I think we're good for today.
I know. Well, one more thing. So what if they say, but it's natural, it comes out the ground?
The original purposes, I don't believe that God put marijuana on the planet to be smoked. It's a natural bug repellent. Man decided to start smoking it.
It was the Indians.
And not everything that is natural is good for you. Let's take shrooms. Let's take shrooms, for example. You eat the wrong mushroom, you seeing stuff all around you. You nervous and scared. Hallucinations. So everything that comes out the ground is not good for you.
And now they mix it with so many different things. You have so many different names for it. So it's not natural anymore.
It's much stronger than it ever was. This is not the marijuana from the 60s that had 5% THC. Okay? This is some strong weed that people are smoking these days.
what they call hydro kush.
Let's not, okay, Stacy D, let's not,
I don't know nothing about it. I just
let's not go into all the brands. Oh, another thing though that the young people are using is the edibles, the gummies, and all those things.
Yes.
And those, the routes of ingestion are more appealing to young people as well. Anything that they can vape and ingest and eat gummies, and you're going up against something really strong when you are trying to discourage them from using marijuana. And I feel like parents are only losing their footing by them smoking it while trying to tell their kids not to smoke it. Do what you're going to do. I just want parents to be prepared if it fails.
This is true.
All right. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is Cognitions, Speaking the Unspeakable with JP.
And Stacy D.
Yes.
And always remember, worry about nothing.
And pray about everything.
Amen. Thank you.
God bless. Take care.
Bye-bye now.
All right. You're listening to